tell me if you... Oh, sorry.
Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, JBizTech.com, and our weekly columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I'm having fun doing all of that, and I write in my column about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. And with us today is someone who does relate well to the Jewish community and government, is our local assemblywoman here, Patricia Fahy. Pat, welcome back to the Jewish View.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
First time you're on our new set.
Yes,
so.
Beautiful. Beautiful, quite frankly.
Well,
yes.
you know, Mark, you say she's, Pat's was the guest speaker, the keynote speaker at the Maimonides Hebrew Day School graduation. So you say relating to the Jewish community. So firsthand, my wife was the MC, and Pat was the keynote speaker. So we know you're a good friend of the Jewish community.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Anything for young people, we make it a priority.
Well, I know you were president of the Albany School Board.
I did, yes.
And so you're really in tune with the with young people
yes.
and what their desires are, or what the needs are. And, you're always there. I mean, if someone invites you, if you're not out of town, you're there.
I try. Thank you. I try, but
well, the impression
there's
is
always
that
a million.
You're there.
Yes, we do try. It's amazing how many events one region can have, but we do try. We work hard at it.
It's like everyone else. If you can't spend all the time there, at least you're there.
Yes.
And then you excuse yourself and you make your remarks and you go.
Yeah.
I mean, and on to the next.
Yes,
event,
yes. Yeah, you keep moving.
And you keep moving, but at least you don't say, well, I don't want to do that. Oh, it's too tight in my schedule. You make room. You really do that. And that's a commendation to your staff as well.
They're
I know
terrific.
that you review everything, but your staff, Jimmy Farrell,
it's news there because you have some politicians, won't say their name, but it's impossible to get them to either come on our show or public. That's what I'm saying. So it's not so simple. Well, you're a politician, you might as well speak to everybody. Some of them don't. So that really is kudos to you.
Thank you. That does mean a lot, because we try, and you do have to say no at times because there's so many events often every night. But I do think it's important. And I do appreciate that, Rabbi, because we always put a priority on youth, and love to get into the schools and see the students, and that you got a terrific group there as well.
And I just didn't want to stop at complimenting Jimmy Farrell, but I also want to compliment Kathy Fahy on your staff as well, and Joe Bonilla.
Yes, great team.
Yeah, so
thank you. That means a lot.
Congratulations on that.
And good people.
Yeah, and they're not moving on so fast.
They put up with me.
Oh, come on. I wanted to ask you off the top. We just heard that the U-Albany president, Robert Jones. I went to him and I said to him, "Is this going to be Bob Jones University?" Hardly.
Hardly. I could hear him saying that. Yes.
But did you know he was going to resign, or did you just hear about it today?
I just heard about it this morning via a text, by the way, and then I did get a call from, his office called, so I did appreciate a little bit of the heads up, because the news then broke a few hours later. But and of course, I was just at the campus yesterday for an event to help promote the engineering school they want to build, and I'm helping them to secure money at the downtown campus. So here I was at the event. You were at the event as well, and had no idea.
He was just smiling a lot.
Yeah. So it was a surprise, and I'm always happy for the individual and wish him obviously the best. I do worry about U-Albany, though, a little bit, because that's a good bit of turnover in the last few years that they've had, especially after the tragic.
Always hurt.
Yeah. No. Hopefully I understand they'll probably appoint somebody interim in September, and then begin a search. So you have to be optimistic.
Maybe they'll bring back the other interim who was there.
Now I'm forgetting. Phillips?
Maybe they'll bring him back for a little bit.
And honestly, that would be wonderful, because then you don't have things at a bit of a standstill. Because when you and you have somebody who can hit the ground running and keep all wheels in motion, as they say.
Bob Jones is going to University of Chicago, but he's
University of Illinois. Champaign, Urbana.
Yes.
And he's also going to be the chancellor
Yes.
of the university system?
No,
No.
my understanding is he'll be the chancellor of their main school, which is the university, as the rabbi said, the University of Illinois, the Champaign-Urbana campus, which
So-
is their big one.
So what's president as opposed to chancellor? Because in New York State, the chancellor oversees all the campuses.
Yes, as I understand it, they have the two major campuses. One is the University of Illinois, the Chicago campus, where I actually went to for my master's degree. So they have a university system between the two, an oversight, plus they have a huge medical school there. So he, though, will be in charge of the Champaign-Urbana campus. But it's one of the most prestigious in the country, and a wonderful compliment to his work here at Albany.
And prestigious for what reason?
They're really known in the engineering. Part of it is because I'm married to an engineer, so I guess I hear about that. But it's also it's one of the biggest in the Illinois system, the Illinois university system.
Right, but
So-
you know, like University at Albany is known as as prestigious for their business school.
Yes.
And it's now, that was when I went there in the late 70s, early 80s. Now they're also known for their nanotechnology before they broke off. So
Sure.
I'm just saying that, you know, University at Albany is prestigious for some concrete reasons.
Yes.
I
yes.
just didn't know why Champaign-Urbana was prestigious, and you're saying engineering.
Yes, engineering is the one that jumps to mind, but and I have not been there for years, quite frankly. But I think overall they're known. They rank as one of the top public universities in the country overall. So I think a number of their programs.
After the SUNY system.
After the SUNY system, absolutely, absolutely, we agree.
Now you know.
That's right.
Now you know Rabbi Simon's from Chicago.
Chicago. I'm still hoping for the Chicago Cubs, Mark.
And I am too. Yes, I am too. I grew up a Cubs fan.
Now you have, you know, what was this past session like for you? We want to do a post-session
report card,
so to speak. You know, I do have the bills, and I just want the audience to know you're chair of the subcommittee on oversight of the Department of Environmental Conservation. That must have been pretty awful with the Hoosick Falls water contamination, but we can get into that later. Member of the Committee of Banks, member on the Children and Families Committee, a member on Environmental Conservation, and then member of the Higher Education, Tourism, Parks, Arts, and Sports Development, member of the committee, and then you're a member of the Legislative Women's Caucus.
Yes.
Okay. So you're not part of the Puerto Rican Black Caucus?
No.
Or the, there are a few other caucuses.
I'm one of the founding members of the Upstate Caucus, Upstate
Upstate
Democratic
Caucus.
Caucus, which has been a wonderful tool to really promote what are significant upstate issues, particularly transportation is where we've been very vocal about the roads, bridges, and then public transportation, which is so critical for getting people to jobs. So that's founding member of that. I'm also one of the founding members of the Environmental Caucus, as well as, and on the Environmental Committee. But then I'm also one of the founding members of the New York Legislators Against Gun Violence.
And are you also on like the Italian American thing?
No,
or-
but I do participate in the Irish legislators
Irish
within my
legislators.
heritage.
Okay.
Yes,
So
yes,
you-
and the airplane caucus as well. Go figure. But
There's an airplane caucus?
there is, well, I don't know if it's a caucus, but it's a group of it's an informal caucus,
So
I guess.
Steve McLaughlin heads that up as the
No,
pilot?
believe it or not, he doesn't. Donna Lupardo does,
Oh.
and she coincidentally heads up the women's caucus too. But it's one to, the airline industry is a huge one, not just in New York City that most people think of, but throughout upstate. And as you know, we were very successful in getting $40 million, a competition for upstate airports.
Now, you can also become an associate member of the Jewish Legislators Association because you have so many synagogues and such a large Jewish
And
community.
you know us over
Then
here.
I'll
You'll
look
just
into
say-
that. You'll put in a word for
So you
me,
can talk to
okay?
Chuck Levine
Chuck Levine works right across the hall from me and is a good friend. So
Rabbi Simon,
I'll tell him Rabbi Simon
honorary.
sent me.
That's right.
Absolutely.
But you talk about travel. One of your committees, you're so busy. You're how many committees you are. But you were like, it was a big story that you were the first one. Tell us about biking all the way from Buffalo. You're really in shape, I can tell you.
Well, no, I'm paying for it this week. I think I'm in recovery. But yes, unbeknownst to me, I've heard about the Cycle the Erie Canal. It's called Cycle the Erie. And I've heard about it for the last few years, and because I'm not originally from here, as we just discussed, we're both from Chicago originally, and even though it's almost 20 years, I'm always trying to learn, and I'm, as I said, a founding member of the Upstate Caucus, so we try to find the connectivity between our issues as we try to promote these. And so I'd heard wonderful things, and my sisters, one from California and one from Chicago, said, if you're going, I'll go, and they committed before I did, and when got my daughter was free as well. So we just finished the cycle. It's an 8-day cycling trip. They said it's for all levels. I have to say I found it challenging, but spectacular.
But what roads do you go on?
Mostly along the canal path of the Erie Canal.
So it's off the highways.
It's mostly, but there's 72 of the 360. It's really almost a 400-mile bike ride, but along the canal, 72 of the miles are not finished. But even the miles that are, where the pathway is there, it's gravel. So it's challenging, especially in the rain.
So when you were in those 72 miles, were you on state roads?
Yes.
You didn't have to go on the thruway.
Not on the thruway, but sometimes some busy state roads, quite frankly.
Well, you were so many of you that's, you know.
It helps.
Yeah.
Yes, it helps. But
how many people went? You say
a record turnout this year, 650 cyclists, and then about 100 people with support. Yes, it was a spectacular way to really learn more about upstate, really understand our small towns, really understand where people are coming from. The geographic diversity of the state is spectacular. And to just really see New York and the beauty of it from another angle.
Where did you actually start from?
We started from downtown Buffalo.
Downtown?
Actually. Yeah.
That's the end of the Erie Canal?
The end of the Erie Canal.
And that's state and what?
Sorry?
You said state something.
We stayed in tents for 8 nights. That was in some ways as rough as the bike ride. I had a very tiny one with my daughter, but so we were in these what they referred to as tent cities on various school grounds, or one night it was in the
600 people. You can imagine.
It's getting harder for them to find it. But one night we were on the grounds adjacent to the Syracuse Zoo, so different places. Yes, different places. Each another night in Rome, Fort Stanwix. So it really gave you an up-close view. Just
one of the things that I was talking about, upstate and all roads put together. So my son is in Canada, and you have to go through Syracuse, then Watertown, if people know the geography. And I went through Syracuse, and they charged $6 for the toll road for 2 hours of going there. So I mean, I've heard it before. It's not my idea, also, but. Like that, it impacts the upstate. Like, who wants to go upstate, when you're just being penalized in a way for so much money for...
Well, it's not just, it's between Albany and Harriman is only $5.
I mean, to exit 16, down south.
Down south. But when you go out west, when you get to Syracuse, and you say it's $6, it's more than what it is going down. I always thought they measured it by the mile, the price by the mile.
Interesting.
And I don't know what that's the way it was always 19 cents a mile at one point. Then it goes up, and you kind of know based on the mileage. I guess it's not anymore, but it's interesting. You're not on any transportation thing, so but maybe you could still look into it.
Yeah, well, I do know though this year one of the things in the budget is that we did hold the line on toll increases, so it doesn't address the current funds. But we did hold the line on increases, even though there is a real need for that money for the Tappan Zee Bridge, because that's going to be another jolt.
The crane just collapsed on the Tappan Zee Bridge, so
very sad.
That was another tragedy today.
I go on the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Well, I want to tell you that if you want to have less of a toll, you go to Utica and take Route 12 up through Lewis County, and you'd go right into Watertown from Route 12.
There you go.
And it doesn't.
Yes, Mark knows his way around
And
New
it
York.
doesn't take any more time than
Yeah, but I
going
wouldn't
all
do
the
it
way
in
to
the
Syracuse to only come back to Watertown. You just go right up. It's the Tug Hill Plateau, so no matter what, there's 2 seasons in the Tug Hill Plateau: winter and August 23rd. You know, don't worry about it. You know, you get used to it. But you're not going to get any more. It's not going to be any more treacherous than the lakefront, than the lake effect storms that come between Syracuse and Watertown. So, you know, that's it. So that's my advice to you.
All right, thank you for. He's the tourism guide. Of
Yes,
New York
I guess we
State.
should put you on the tourism committee. That's right.
I love it. Because, you know, I still got my World Cities tour.
That's right, World Cities. That's right.
So let me. You were the Associate Commissioner of Intergovernmental Affairs and Federal Policy for the Department of Labor.
In their Congressional Affairs Office. So
Yeah.
essentially I was one of the advocates or lobbyists, if you will, for the early Bill Clinton administration, advocating for the administration's legislation on Capitol Hill, which at the time I had just left. This is now over 20 years ago, it's hard to believe, but I'd worked in both the Senate and in the House at one time for Senator Paul Simon from Illinois.
Yeah.
I think you have to be of a certain age nowadays to remember him, but at one time a lot of people did, the bow tie senator.
That's right. He ran for president.
He ran for president in 1988, actually. So I worked for him for a number of years and then worked down the House side and then went over into the early Clinton administration again, doing advocacy on workforce-related legislation.
Because this says 07 to 12, that you were at the Clinton side.
Oh, that might be a typo there. Yes, I was in...
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I think what you're referring to is the New York Department of Labor, and yes, I was there for 5 years.
the State's Department of Labor.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to the U.S. Department of Labor. I should listen more when you say Congressional Affairs.
Yeah, no, I see all the other references on the federal side.
Sorry, Mark, I'm so used to people saying they were similarly named, but yes, then after moving to Albany, then I worked for the State Department of Labor for over 5 years.
In federal policy and intergovernmental affairs,
yes.
To tie in what you already did on the federal level.
Precisely,
Okay.
precisely, because Department of Labor is overwhelmingly federally funded, so it was trying to get that money, especially for the unemployed.
Right, I know. If you work for the State Department of Labor, you can't, you're hatched. You can't run for office.
And I had to leave that almost overnight to run for this office, and it's actually helped to make me a big advocate for help with financing elections, because I had to go about 7 months without a paycheck in order to run for the office, because I had to leave.
Your husband's an engineer. You weren't
but
starving.
I do say that's if we didn't have the dual income. If I weren't married, I wouldn't have been able to do this on one income.
No,
so I do think it's made me a very big advocate for trying to minimize the money and the influence of money in campaigns, because it almost kept me from running. When somebody told me I needed to raise over $100,000 to run for office, I don't think I slept for 3 days.
To figure out how to do it.
To figure out how to do it. It's a very intimidating thing to hear.
So what's the report card that you give for this past legislative session? Was it productive? Was it a yawner? What's your thoughts on this?
In my view, I always think it's incredibly productive. Partly for this year, I felt very good about my own initiatives in the budget, and then my other legislative initiatives by June. But I also think it was very productive in terms of the state overall. In the budget, as you know, we passed paid family leave. If somebody had talked to me last December before the new year hit, I would have said no way. It just wasn't ready for prime time. Can't put a burden on employers, and yet we were able to not only pass paid family leave, but to make it employee funded. So with a very, very minuscule deduction of just, I think it's less than $1 a paid, I mean, it's very small. We can build up that fund and allow for paid family leave, that along with minimum wage increases and funding, record-setting funding in education, new record-setting funding in upstate transportation, as I referred to earlier. So on a host of issues, the governor, to his credit, put in money for the Environmental Protection Fund. So I do believe we had an excellent budget. It doesn't mean we got everything we wanted. I could list 10 other things too.
Right, because yesterday you mentioned something about the school and
higher ed.
And what was that about? That you got a little bit, but you wanted more?
We had hoped for,
more?
Yeah, sure. So that was one of the disappointments in the budget. We had really hoped for, I think it was $150 million that we were looking for all of the SUNY systems, SUNY CUNY systems for higher education, which I do believe is important to keep affordable and accessible. And these were capital monies so that they can invest in their campuses, not just on upkeep, but also on growth. We fell short of that. In the last day, we really thought the speaker was a tremendous advocate and is a believer because he's a SUNY Stony Brook graduate, but fell short in the monies.
What about for the money for the school, the renovation of the old Albany High School?
Well, that's
I thought that's
you mean
what
the
you were
old
referring
Albany
to.
High, yes, for the engineering. So what we need, though, is the overall state money for SUNY. And then what happens is UAlbany has to compete within that SUNY-wide pot. So in other words, if there's not money in the pot there, in the SUNY pot, which I was strongly advocating for, it makes it hard for me to advocate for UAlbany if we don't get that influx of capital dollars into the overarching pot. So that's what I was referring to and where we fell short. We did get in the end, I think it was $20 million. It's divided. I think CUNY gets about 1/3 of that and SUNY gets the other. So what I said in the press event yesterday at UAlbany is that we hope to get at least a down payment.
Right, of how
and if
much?
they can, well, if we can even get a couple of million or $1 million, anything that keeps the momentum going for the engineering school as we seek additional funds, because in the end they need, I want to say it's $62 million for that building. Yeah, is it 62?
Well, no, it was 80. It was the same cost, I think, as what the new Albany, the current Albany High School is doing for its renovations. I asked that at the last news conference that they had there.
To renovate the
this.
UAlbany Engineering School. Okay. Well, either way, it's a big one. But as you know, with any capital investment, you don't need it all overnight.
No, and you
so we've just got to get that.
There is an engineering school right now in Albany. I mean, I don't
just
even
got
go to SUNY
approved by the
Albany.
State Education Department
To start.
this month to certify that they could have a
All right, so it's a
engineering.
brand new thing.
So even if they don't have the building, Rabbi, they'll at least start the program, initiate the program as they try to renovate the building, try to seek the capital dollars, which I'll continue to work with them on.
Exactly, and they probably know that this won't be built in 1 year either.
Of course.
But you know, they're going out and talking to potential contributors and donors who are alumni to ask them to help pay for this.
Yes.
So they're working on multi-tracks.
And they have to. Anybody in higher education now, it's a multi-pronged effort, and it has to be a public-private collaboration, including with outside funders.
I would think that it's not called member items anymore, but there's a bill, one of the budget bills that you could put in your special
Capital yes. It's
project.
the SAM. It's the state and municipal funding.
Right.
You have to be a municipality. It has to be government. It can no longer be nonprofits, things of that nature. But yes, we are given some monies to designate to our local towns, cities, or villages.
So none of that could be used for this project?
No.
No. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
And it's what each member is given is a blip on the radar screen in terms of in comparison to what they need.
I hear you. Now you had, let me ask you about this oversight of DEC. Since you're the chair of the subcommittee, I'm always told these chairs of subcommittees are usually a committee of 1 or 2.
Sure, yeah, it's a very small one, yes.
Were you surprised about the reaction from the DEC at Hoosick Falls and the PFOA problem?
I think we're still learning about that right now. Yes, I think that there was some initial, there could have been more done initially. And I don't think that there was a recognition, as we keep reading, there was a little bit of confusion, given that the federal government hadn't labeled the PFAOs as OA, thank you. as dangerous or as harmful initially, and so I think that people were a little caught off guard. But yes, DEC, and you know now we are finally going to have some hearings this fall that I'll be participating in.
Did you push the speaker? Were you one of the throngs that pushed the speaker to have the hearings?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
I wasn't sure.
No. I have 2 children, and some of the information that has come out is very disconcerting, and so yes, I was an advocate of the hearings.
Okay, so I wanted to go over some of the bills that you had.
Sure.
I think this past session, but it's a 2-year stint.
Sure.
So if you don't pass in 1 year, you could just have the number roll over to the next. Relates to the reacquisition of abandoned cemetery plots. What is that about? And because I'm always told that in the Senate, Rasenhofer is always the cemetery guy that they go to.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know if he's carrying the companion of this, but what happened with this abandoned cemetery plot?
He's not, but the intent there is that we have some very old cemeteries that are falling into disrepair. And the intent is to kind of help such that they can, if they are very old, that they can, and they've lost track of, I think, it has to be multi-generations or multi-decades of abandonment. In an effort to try to restore those cemeteries and provide for some upkeep in very limited circumstances, they can reuse and help to.
So did this pass?
No, it has not yet, not that I know of.
We do have a Bureau of Cemeteries at the Department of State. Did you know that?
I think I knew that, and you're jogging my memory.
They meet monthly, so it might be interesting if you have this and we had to go to that, but they meet Thursdays, and then we also had the executive director, the head of the Association of Cemeteries on our show, who also happens to be the supervisor of the town of Nassau, which has the PFOA issue also.
Coincidental.
But I didn't know that.
Okay. Well, we'll follow up on that one.
Now, I wanted to ask you about...
You're not blaming the cemetery on it.
Right, no, I'm just... it's government, so I'm putting this all together in government.
Keep him on his toes
That's
there.
it. Authorize the Common Council of the City of Albany as the local legislative body to establish the fee charged for issuance of birth and death records.
Yes, that did not move either.
Why was
passed
that necessary?
We have a city that is $12 million in debt last year and expected to be even higher in debt this year. So there's been a number of municipalities that, first of all, I don't think the state should be regulating this. This really should be locally driven. But it is to allow them to have small fees and to charge, because as you know, some people need 20 copies for various reasons, and others only want 1 copy, but it is a way to help them generate a small fee. And they need authority on that.
Okay. And
it would be, I should say though, it would be capped. It would be capped. I mean, it's not a way for them to gouge the consumer.
Right.
It's just a way to, as you do when you need a copy of, when you go into a library, when you make copies of something, you're going to pay a little extra than what you might if you went to Staples.
I thought that if you, that all this was online and you could print out all these documents
I think
online.
a lot of them you can. Yes, it's only when you're using staff time.
Okay, then you have relates to the form and content of designating petitions for the Office of Board of Education members of the School District City of Albany. This is tailored just for you. So
this is a technical
because you were
one.
A former.
This is it's a technical one where right now I think only in Albany do we have the old version, an archaic version of petitions for just school board candidates.
Right.
And it causes a lot of confusion out there when you're collecting in comparison to regular petitions for other elected offices. So it was a way of it's really just to update.
And nothing happened with that?
I thought that one passed.
Oh yeah? Okay, good.
Yeah, that one passed. Now, make sure you don't run out of time before you get to my indigent legal services, because in my 4 years in the Assembly, that is my most significant bill, and I'd love to talk about it.
Okay, because I wanted to ask you about the statewide central register for child abuse and maltreatment. Then that had to do with the White case.
Kenneth White, yes. That was after the very, very tragic death a year and a half ago, or murder, if you will, of Kenneth White.
Yeah.
We saw that there were some glitches in response time and access to records when he was a missing child early on in the investigation before they found the body.
Yeah, and they didn't, and there was something about handing over information
Yes.
from the state central registry to the
local, to the sheriff, yes.
Right.
And so this helps to clarify access to those records.
Okay, and so you carried this, was it
I
a
carried this
was it
bill
a heavy
has been
lift?
signed. It was a major heavy lift. No bill is simple, I'm afraid.
Well, but it was
so-
opposed by the sheriff, by someone?
Wasn't opposed by the sheriff. He was actually with us, brought him in to
No,
even meet
I
with
meant-
staff.
That's why I stopped, but I was going to say Sheriff's Association, but are you, was there any opposition from a
Well,
group?
there was some opposition into the technical pieces of it, and the governor initially was going to veto it, but instead we made technical amendments. So it isn't as strong as we would have initially liked, but it gets the point across and it gets
Yeah,
the
we're
message.
running out of time. Let's hear your
Yes,
point now.
indigent legal services.
There you go.
Reimbursement to
The
counties,
biggest-
the full amount
yeah.
of expenditures for indigent legal
Yes,
services.
this is Gideon versus Wainwright over 50 years ago was a landmark Supreme Court ruling that guaranteed if you are accused of a criminal offense, you are guaranteed the right to a lawyer or representation. In only a few states, New York being one of them, the cost of that legal representation was passed on to the counties. And what's happened, fast forward 50 plus years, is depending upon what county you live in, often dictates the type of representation you're given, especially in our poorer counties. A lawsuit was brought by the NYCLU and settled by the governor over 2 years ago for 5 counties, saying that, okay, we recognize that there has been inequitable justice being served here, especially in some of these poorer counties, and the state now will begin to pick up the cost of this representation, given that this is a fundamental constitutional right. What my bill does, along with Senator DeFrancisco, is say what's good for those 5 counties is good for counties throughout the state. It really is a landmark ruling, and I'm hoping the governor will pass it, will sign it. It passed overwhelmingly, solid bipartisan support, unanimous support. Took a year and a half to get done, but it passed with unanimous support. It just does have a cost, and because it will be the single biggest mandate relief now, if we can begin to fund this over 7 years, single biggest mandate relief from our counties, our 62 counties.
So is NISAC going to give you Legislator of the Year award for this?
NISAC is, yes, Steve Aquario was doing cartwheels, but we still have to get it signed. Yes, NISAC, this was their #1 bill this year. And the fact that we got it done was, this is the bill that wasn't supposed to happen. I'm incredibly proud of it. I'm still a little exhausted from it.
Wow.
But we are hoping the governor will sign it. But it's got a big price tag on it, but
How
it will
much?
provide, well, at full funding, it's 7 years. When fully implemented, it can go as high as about $600 million.
That's a lot.
But it's huge
Not for the
relief
state.
from our county governments. And we're hoping it will actually save money, because if you're provided proper legal representation at the get-go, at the front end, we might avoid some jail time for those who don't have
deserve
bail,
it,
or
yeah.
So how much is it initially going to in the first year?
Initially,
or 2?
we're, less than 100 million. It will,
Okay.
we have it where we would spread out.
So it kind of
over
increased the
6
100 million over the 7 years.
Not
and-
quite, but
not
close.
Quite, but close. Yeah.
Pat, we're running out of time, but you got a good A+ on your report
Thank
card.
you. Thank you.
came
I'll
in.
take it. I'll take it. It's never
especially
dull.
if-
Never dull, as I often say. Thank you for having me.
Continue with your good work and do it with good health.
Yes,
Thank you.
continued success, Pat.
Thank you.